science lovers. We just chilling. Gonna go do our show here shortly. I'm so glad you're here. We're gonna talk about current climate change science. I hope you're ready for that. I know I am. We got about a minute left before we get started. Howdy, howdy. We're a day late, but that's okay. We got a good show today. Talking about the latest and greatest in climate science, what all the new things are, what the new data says, and what we can do about it. Alrighty, so I'm going to show you my new patron video, so I'm going to take a moment to thank my patrons. So, check this out. So hello science lovers, thank you to my patrons. So today we are talking about current climate change science and what all the new data suggests. So let's go ahead and get started. Alright guys, hello. Welcome to the show. So today we are talking about current climate change science, what the new data suggests and what's going on with that. So let's have a look. So we're going to talk just for a minute about climate change. I'm not going to spend too much time on that. Hello Nana. Hey Kristen Frost. I like that name. That's awesome. And Orla. Hello. Hello, everyone. Hi, everyone. Mark, Tony. All right. So we're going to talk about essentially what is climate change. But I'm not going to spend too much time on that because I've done an entire episode, very thorough, about discussing all the evidence. But we're going to briefly discuss what it is. We're going to talk about the 2018 National Climate Assessment. I'm also going to talk a little bit about the carbon cycle changes that have been associated. That's part of that study. And we're also going to talk about what we can do. So this is what we mean when we're talking about climate change. It's not just, I'm going to move you guys up here a second. There we go. It's not just weather. You know, it's like, well, it snowed this one time. What is this global warming people are talking about? It's not just that. It's trends in weather, okay? It's changes in the weather over time, okay? It's not just, it's hot this one day or this one time it snowed. It's not that. It is changing. Climate is changing. It's regularly changing. And there are multiple factors that play a role in carbon dioxide. Hello, how are you guys? So it's not just one piece of evidence. So there's CO2, atmospheric CO2, there's the melting ice caps, we also have acidification of the ocean, things like that. I'm going to show you all the different evidence that we have. But it's important to note there is not just one piece of evidence. There's lots of evidence that we have available to kind of show us. So here's some of this evidence. All right, so NASA Forever has a wonderful website to break down the evidence with citations, of course. I highly recommend you take a look at what they have. And here is what we have for evidence when we're talking about climate change science. Now I want to move you guys there. So we have a global temperature rise. So the planet's getting hotter. We have warming oceans. We also have the ice sheets that are regularly shrinking. There's also glacial retreat, meaning it's shrinking as well. Decreased snow cover. We have sea levels rising. We have declining Arctic sea ice. We also have extreme events, and we have something called ocean acidification. So what we mean in all of this, let me see. There you guys are. So when we're talking about this stuff, I'm often asked what one piece of evidence shows climate change is real. There's a fallacy in this way of thinking. However, it is what many seem to think is needed in order to prove climate change exists. So let me clarify some things. There is no one piece of evidence for climate change. That is not how climate or science works. If we based an entire scientific concept on one piece of evidence, we would be terrible at science and likely miss the actual correlation between two things. Now, we have to actively show in multiple ways how one thing connects to or even causes another thing to happen. The data we have for climate change and the causes of it is compelling. I did an entire episode discussing what each piece of data represents, what it means. Please do check it out, The Science of Climate Change. It's way earlier back in the list. You can check out on my playlist and scroll through and you can find it. I was very thorough in that particular episode, so I won't be discussing what each piece of evidence is here, but if you want to, you can check it out. But what I will be discussing is discussing the latest data that we have. So that's kind of it. So let me catch up on the chat really quickly. Hey guys, all right. Checking out. You're worried about coral death. Yeah, coral reefs, it's a big freaking issue, and it is a problem right now. It's a big problem. But hopefully we can do something about it. I'm not certain 100% what we can do at this point to kind of resurrect the coral reefs, other than just hoping they can adapt to the acidification, which is going to be very difficult to do, seeing how the way that coral reefs build and grow. The increase in the squid population. Everything's a balance, and when you start shifting and messing with that balance, it becomes a real problem. And people just are like, oh, well, hey, it won't happen to me. This is a thing that's not real. It still snows sometimes, and the snowstorms are terrible, but that's not what it is. It's the change in the things. Not that the things still happen, but the change in the things. Yeah? All right. So what I want to do, I'm going to move you guys up here again. Here we go. So you're up here with me. It's so funny. Or I could just move you guys back down here. Here you go. You can just fit nicely kind of right there, I guess, maybe. It's always fun. Live streams are fun with positioning of my chat. Active positioning of my chat, and it depends entirely on how I put these things together. So, whatever. So let's talk about the 2018 Federal Climate Assessment. So this particular thing came out. Let's see. The 2018 assessment was released last November. Now the report in brief. Now the shortened report. not the full report, is approximately 196 pages. And it is comprehensive in what the data reflects and the areas that are involved with these changes. Now, the full report and brief are available online for free at NCA 2018, so nca2018.globalchange.gov. Now, NOAA, of course, NOAA, played a role in this research, and their website breaks down what the new data means for us in the U.S. and how it affects everyone in the long term. Now, let's discuss what we know and what to expect. So 2018, the Federal Climate Assessment basically looked at the effects on communities, agriculture and food, ecosystems, water and the coasts, as well as health. So if you've not checked out climate change CGI, if you've not checked out NOAA, not only does NASA have a very good comprehensive website that's very easy to read when it comes to the climate change evidence, so does NOAA. And so they've taken that huge, giant report and kind of condensed it down into more manageable types of bits, so you can kind of process it a little bit easier. So essentially, what are we dealing with when we're talking about this? Boom. Wait, not it. It. All right. So let's start with communities. So essentially what we're seeing with the latest assessment is that human health and safety, quality of life, economic growth in communities, all of these are increasingly vulnerable to the various impacts of climate change. Now, the impacts of climate change, the cascading impacts, they threaten the natural built and social systems we rely on, both within and beyond nations' borders. So it's not just our country that's being affected. We are going to affect other countries. Now, while society has tried to respond to climate change, and they've increased in how they're addressing it in the last 5 years, it's still not substantial enough to meet and exceed what the damages to the economy, environment, and human health has done over the past few years. So what we're saying here is, even though society is getting a little bit better about addressing climate change and the issues associated with it, it's not enough. It's not going to help in the coming decades. We've got to do something a bit more. Now, if we don't have substantial and sustained global efforts to reduce greenhouse gases and their emissions, climate change is expected to cause growing losses to the American infrastructure, as well as property, and it's going to impede the rate of economic growth over the next century, over this century actually. So we as a community have to come together and realize that though we're trying, it's not enough. We've got to kind of buck up and do a bit more. So I'm going to talk a little bit about today about what we can do as a community. So as far as agriculture and food production, we have got extreme heat, we have rising temperatures, the wildfires that we have on the rangelands, the ridiculously hardcore downpours that we have, they're expected to increase. And so this is going to challenge the quality of our crops, how much crop we get. It's going to also affect our livestock. We're going to see an increase in costs, and rural livelihoods are going, so all farmers and people in agriculture and food production, they're going to be affected. It's going to hurt their livelihoods. Now, in regard to the ecosystems in the U.S., our continued change in climate, and it's been rapid changes, they're going to disrupt a substantial amount of our ecosystems. We already see coral reef and ice ecosystems, sea ice ecosystems, they're already experiencing damage. It's in the form of transformational changes. It's affecting communities, not only people communities, but it's also affecting animal communities, plant communities. And it's also affecting people who rely on the sea for their livelihoods. So different economies, especially in, when you're talking about economies that are close to like the sea ice or close to the coral reefs, where they rely heavily on that, it's going to affect them pretty soon. And it already kind of has. So what about water and what about the coast? Hello, Doc. Hello. So what about water and the coast? So the thing that's kind of hitting home about all of this, and the words that I see a lot in this report, is quality and quantity. Quality and quantity of everything is going to be affected. So when we're talking about water in the coast, quality and quantity of fresh water for people in the environment, it's going to be affected. We're seeing changes in that. It's increasing the risks of health, costs, energy, industry, recreation, all of these different things. We're seeing a change in how much water we have and the quality of it. And so it's hitting across all of these different things. Insurance companies are having to raise rates to where many won't be able to afford coverage, yeah? So also, climate change, we've talked about sea levels rising. It's transforming coastal regions, and we expect it to transform continuously through the latter part of this century. And these ripple effects will affect not only life within the ecosystem, but also people who live on the water and the coast. There's going to be higher costs and lower property values as sea levels rise. And so the impact on health. Climate change threatens, not just our animals and plants and crops, but the health of humans at this rate. And the well-being of the people within the U.S. It's going to cause increasing extreme weather in the form of torrential downpours, extreme heat, where we've already saw this past winter was absolutely horrible for the people up north. We're going to have changes to air quality, the spread of new diseases by insects and pests. And then it's also going to change the availability of food and water. If we continue to have extreme droughts, our crop production is going to go down. We're also going to have issues feeding our agriculture. So we're looking at a lot of different things, and it's getting to the point to where we're already seeing this impact. So especially with diseases by insects and pests, if your insects and your pests don't hibernate and it stays warm for extended periods of time, guess which populations increase? Yay for ants! I battle ants year-round now in my house. It is a consistent thing. Ants and gnats have been absolutely horrible. And it doesn't matter if I clean. I have ants in my bathroom. They're just in my bathroom. There's no food in the bathroom. And they're there. They're right there. They're like, hello, ants. So, yeah. The Maldives are shrinking due to ocean levels rising rapidly. Yes, yes. Hello, everyone. So we're looking at all of these different things. It's actually kind of frightening. It's frightening what we're looking at. So some of the information that came from the latest report also came from the carbon cycle, looking at the current state of the carbon cycle and what that data represents. So let's talk a bit about that. Let me get you guys over to the right screen. Alrighty, let's give this a go. Here we go. Let me move you guys right there. Here you are. So I realize this isn't the most beautiful thing to just move my chat around sometimes. You know what? I can move it. I can move you over here. We'll just put you right there. All right. So this particular table I have here, when you're digging into the 2018 report, they also cite the second state of the carbon cycle report. So that's the SOCCR2, second state of the carbon cycle report. It was authored by more than 200 scientists, and it also gives insight to the current data on how the increase of carbon is contributing to our climate change. And so all 200 scientists got together. They wrote this thing up based on current climate science as far as what the data suggests when it comes to carbon dioxide, what we see. And so the different things that they hit. Again, I pulled up the brief, and you can check out this brief as well if you go to the website I mentioned for the brief based on the 2018 national assessment. You can find a link to this as well, and actually put a link at the end of this particular presentation so you can go and click on it and have a look. So they basically focused on the carbon dynamics, and this is looking at North America. So it's just exclusively looking at the U.S., North America, Mexico, Canada. So we've got carbon dynamics. They look at fossil fuels. They talk about the changing landscape and how we're cutting down more trees, deforestation, building houses, buildings, making more cities. They discuss ocean acidification, Arctic changes, indigenous communities, the importance in regarding indigenous communities, cities and their contributions to carbon emission, as well as knowledge gaps in science investments. So what does all of this mean? So let me catch up on the chat really quickly before we dive into that. Let me see. It's all good. Ants like the new soaps. Mine are just still like the bar soaps. I don't have anything that smells super fancy. I just like good old fashioned hot water and soap, you know. Sharing a bathroom with ants are weird. Hey, Doc Fearsome. Hello, everyone. All right, so I'm catching up on the chat. I was enjoying my vacation. I would like to continue the tour whenever you're able to be a guide again. Okay. Dr. Ernest E. Kung developed a thermodynamic model of climate systems that as heat energy increases, kinetic energy is released as tornadoes and hurricanes. That could very well be true. So what we're looking at is all kinds of different things. Extreme weather, primarily in the form of rising temperatures, torrential downpours, droughts, these sorts of things that are inherently problematic right now. So this particular report, the SOCCR2, all right, what does all this mean? So in North America, emissions have reduced from 24% to 17%. And that's a lot due to the fact that society here is pushing to be more conscious about that. Now, as far as our ecosystems, in the U.S., globally, 11 to 13% of the global CO2 is removed by North American ecosystems. But when you think about how much in North America, the U.S. primarily is still like the number 2 contributor to carbon dioxide emitted into the atmosphere, China being number 1 still. You think about that. We're still not removing as much of the carbon dioxide as we're putting in. We've got to do a bit more than that. So for the past decade, the biggest contributor to our CO2 emissions have been from fossil fuels. And so that hasn't really changed. That's still a contributing factor, which means we should probably really super consider removing our dependence on fossil fuels. We've got to go towards more renewable resources. Landscape change, so deforestation, building more buildings, this sort of thing, is expected to increase carbon dioxide emissions throughout the next decade or so. I think all the way into 2050. So it's still just kind of, So by mowing down our wooded areas and building more cities, we're going to contribute to an increase in the carbon dioxide atmosphere. But that kind of makes sense, doesn't it? If you get rid of the things that take the carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere, then you're going to, and then you use more things that burn the fossil fuels that put the carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. It's just kind of like a no-brainer, you know? So the landscape changing that we're doing is expected to increase carbon dioxide emissions. At least in the atmospheric carbon. How much has permafrost loss contributed? I don't know that right off the bat, but I imagine it's been pretty substantial. China has felt we built our economic system on fossil fuels, so it's hypocritical for us to comply. Yeah, I mean, we kind of need to. Dr. Kung was funded by National Science Foundation for many years, yeah. Yeah, CO2 is always post-correlated with changes in human population. Yeah, I agree with that. Hey, Tatted Philosophy. Hey, Skywatcher. Hello, Pure Ostension. Is it Pure Ostension? Well, I'm saying hello. I'm not certain how much permafrost loss has contributed. Probably not as much as our fossil fuels. A car with a turbine in the front, that when it travels, the turbine spins and charges up batteries. So when idling, you don't use fuel. Maybe. That's something to consider. Let's see. I think we hit a point of no return. To a degree, yeah. So we've got to start removing carbon dioxide out of the oxygen on our own. We started the domino effect after reaching a certain parts per million, which happened a couple years ago. Okay, let's see. You've got a hybrid car, much better fuel economy. I really would like a hybrid car, but I can't necessarily afford a new car right now. Oh, you'll have my Captain Captain Marvel mug. Yep, there she is. Rawr! Being awesome and stuff. Yeah, they do. I like the hybrid cars. Man, well, this is why we should allow people to have autonomy over their bodies, so we don't make babies that we don't want. So, we've got to kind of address, the fact that we do have billions and billions and billions of people on this planet, and it's not fair for forced birth. And I know this is a little aside. I am pro-choice in that, I don't think it's fair for somebody to have a baby that they don't want to have. And carrying that child is just the costs involved with having the baby, of making certain that the mother is healthy, and it's high cost. I mean, having a baby is freaking expensive, and not only that, it permanently changes a mother's body. And if you don't want the child, then you end up putting them in foster care, which costs more money, and then you have a high rate of all kinds of developmental issues with that. So yeah, human population's an issue. Yeah, it really doesn't help that we destroyed huge areas of the rainforest. The boreal forest is the number 2 worldwide remover of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. I really hope we don't start tearing that down. Number 1 being the ocean, and ocean's acidification is a real big thing. Now, something else to consider. Ocean acidification in the national report, or the 2018 assessment that was released in November of last year, Ocean acidification is occurring a lot faster as our Arctic changes, much faster than it has in the past. So the ocean's ability to effectively remove carbon dioxide, because it absorbs a lot of the CO2, but because of that, it raises the pH of the oceans, which causes a lot of issues for the aquatic life. It uses up energy, but we can supply that with solar, wind, and nuclear. Yeah, we do need to invest in that particular infrastructure. The first world does not make replacement numbers according to statistics. It's also thought that the third world will follow in this, while we probably will hit 10 billion. Yeah, we probably will. Yeah, rising water level, surf's up, guys. Rising water levels are going to be fun. And oh, man. Surf's up, you guys. I'm landlocked except for a river. So I'll get my surfboard ready. We cannot sustain 7 billion. We can't sustain most of the people that we have in the US. I mean, people are dying because they can't get insulin. So, I mean, if we can't even supply medicine that's readily available to people who need it, how are we going to be able to, just something that we can actually make in a lab? We just don't supply to people because nobody's putting a cap on the cost of insulin and things like that. Learn to swim. I can swim. And I'm quite buoyant, so I should be okay. I'm quite buoyant. Although women's rights and education are supposed to be key in keeping our population on a declining path. Well, yeah. It won't be long before we have too many to feed, and I give it 100 years before we destroy this planet beyond repair. Possibly. It's hard to know. But people are actively trying, but they're not doing enough. And that's what the latest assessment has said. They're trying, but they're not doing enough. And it's society in general. Polar ice sheets are melting faster than predicted, as well as changing the ocean currents. Yep, that's what it's doing. It's the other things that this particular report came out with: farming, agriculture. You have carbon that's stored in the soil. So carbon being released through farming and through our agriculture, it's being released into the atmosphere, the carbon dioxide is. So it suggested that farming shift towards reducing erosion, utilizing what they call cover crops to that hold the soil in place, and also to improve nutrient management for these crops. As it sets, it's quite difficult. That's actually a quote from a Tool song. Oh my goodness. So we even have to address the fact that our agriculture, by releasing, by going through in the way that we handle the soil right now, we're releasing carbon dioxide from the soil into the atmosphere. One thing that the report discussed was learning from indigenous communities on sustainable management of forests and an overall sense of community. One thing that the report pointed out is that indigenous communities are exceedingly important because they managed to live on this earth without all of the technology that we have, and they've done just fine. And they have an overall sense of community and treating each other as part of a group rather than saying every man for himself. So the idea and sense of community, we can learn that from looking at indigenous communities. Okay, so I'm catching up. All right, Nether. I once did read an article where the professor writing it calculated that with the loss due to climate change, we would only be able to feed 5 billion humans by 2050 if we don't use GMO. GMO is exceedingly important right now. And here's the thing. A lot of people can't afford this. Oh, this is non-GMO. Oh, God. Eggs are non-GMO, guys. Oh, my goodness. It's like, unless your chicken is genetically modified to just shoot out eggs, a high rate of eggs, which I don't even know that that's a thing. There's genetically modified chickens that provide more legs, so you can have more legs per chicken for your KFC, I guess. But you know, yeah, but GMO is essential at this point. We're gonna have to have plants that can grow and survive in drought conditions, because that's what we're looking at now. As long as the population grows, nothing we too will matter, I guess. I'm not certain what that means. Sometimes I read a sentence and it takes me like 4 times to process what it says. So please bear with me. All right, so other things that this particular report discussed. Urban areas are highest contributors. So with the SOCCR2, so the carbon cycle, I think this is the second edition. Urban areas, we've got to address the fact that cities are the highest contributors to CO2. We need to be able to work towards reducing emissions through transportation. Transportation is becoming an issue now. Is the addition of hormones into chicken feed producing GMO chickens. You know, I believe it's against FDA regulations to actually use hormones in chicken and pork. They can use it in beef, but they can't use it in chicken and pork. But I don't think there's hormones in chicken feed, unless they've pulled back that regulation. I'm not certain. You never know. They are changing so many regulations. Jeez. Technically, we could keep feeding an ever-growing population if we build orbital infrastructure. Limitless solar power and farming satellites are within our technical reach. Yeah, you're right, Nather. We can totally do solar. I mean, it's completely possible. We have areas of Texas. We only need a small little section of Texas to put enough solar powers on. We could power the whole U.S. from that. So it's within our capability. It's just, you know, people like their money. And people, I mean certain corporations. So corporations that have become reliant on fossil fuels, you know, and to use that to generate power, they like that money. So, you know, and they don't want to have to shift to that. So this is where we're going to start talking about ways to fix that here in a second. But what about science? What does science need to do at this point? Well, according to that same report, the SOCCR2, that was written by like over 200 scientists, they essentially said that research needs to move toward filling in the knowledge gaps that they have in regard to technology and renewable energy. So they need to fill in these gaps to generate new technologies to manage the carbon that we have. It's the carbon dioxide storage, how it's stored, and its removal from the atmosphere in the form of possibly, can we store carbon dioxide in the ground instead of the atmosphere? Shifting towards that to where we don't have emissions going out into the atmosphere, but possibly putting it back down in the earth. That could possibly generate new fossil fuels. Wouldn't that be amazing? Getting supermarkets to quit buying double what they need so it's aesthetically pleasing, then tossing 40% of their stock. Oh gosh, you know, isn't there like an initiative online? You can buy ugly fruit and ugly vegetables that don't look pretty, and it tastes the same, cooks the same, eats the same, doesn't do anything. So yeah. Throw the ugly fruit out there, man. Throw the ugly stuff out. I usually buy my bananas when they're practically done. They like put them in bags and, you know, or they'll wrap tape around them and so like bananas sold, you know, drop the price. I just grab up that. You can throw bananas in the refrigerator, and even when they're really ripe, it'll slow the process, the ripening process. A lot of the vegetables that I buy are flash frozen. because I like to make stir fries. I like to make soups and stuff. And so instead of fresh, I buy frozen. And I just grab it, throw it in my freezer, and I can eat on that for a while. And frozen vegetables, they don't have to look pretty. Chop them up, throw them in a bag, stick them in a freezer. That's what I do. And it works. Bananas that are very ripe are incredibly, they are, and they're really good. If you like waffles, you can make banana waffles, muffins, pudding, all kinds of stuff. Companies, particularly owned by Musk, are planning to sell solar cells along with their batteries in electric cars. Musk invents nothing. He just finances tech already around. You have a point there, Nether. So, you like bananas almost green. I think I have a slight latex allergy, because if I have bananas that are not ripe, it makes my mouth itch. I get itchy mouth from not ripe bananas. So I think I might have a slight latex allergy, to where that it just maybe the latex in the bananas is a bit more pronounced. That what they use. So I think I have a slight allergy to bananas if they're not ripe. I don't know I don't know what it is. I should really look into that, because that's interesting. Anywho, you get that from apples. I wonder what that is. I wonder if there's a protein in there that triggers an allergic response. And that just kind of diminishes over time the more ripe a fruit gets. That'd be interesting. Yeah, Elon Musk is like Edison. Yeah, you're right. We need another Tesla. That's what we need. Like actual Tesla, not the company. But it's funny. It's funny that he's like an Edison, but his company is Tesla. He has like a car named Tesla. He stole a man's name to make a car. Oh my goodness. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, he has sponsored a lot of things to get different ideas off the ground. So, here we go. So let's take a look. Where are you guys? Are you guys here? Nope, you've vanished. Is it this one? There you are. All right. So let's take a look. It seems very doomsday. We're like, the world is on fire and we're dying and Thanos was right. Some of you might be thinking, Thanos is right. But all I got to say is this. Thanos could have generated more resources. I'm just saying. He could have just generated more resources. Not necessarily, cause a genocide. It's kind of like one of those things where you sit there, Thanos has a point. But was that necessarily the best way to do things? Whatever. I think he just likes killing people. Yeah, Tesla and Edison didn't much care for each other. No, they didn't. Not at all. So what are the things that we can do? Because it sounds so doomsday. Doomsday. So what we really need is renewable energy, solar, wind. Move towards that. You can insulate your homes better. I have I have windows that face east and west. The sun sets in my backyard and rises in my front yard. I have insulation on my windows to kind of keep my house cool in the summertime and warm in the wintertime. So I have that. You can insulate your homes a bit better. You can also use energy efficient appliances. Energy efficient appliances are always a good thing. Collective action in communities is extremely important. We come together within our local communities to talk about climate change, how it affects not only ourselves but other people. Work to generate programs. We've got to, and there may be programs already in your community you don't even know about. So, transportation. We have got to start working on walking places. If you can walk to work, freaking walk to work. If you can walk to the store, walk to the store. Public transportation is great. We should probably focus on that as well as making that a better opportunity so we can have less cars contributing to the CO2 atmosphere and move towards hybrid cars. Vote. Vote for people that accept climate science, understand climate change is real, and start to put in regulations and incentives for energy companies to move towards renewable. Vote for people who encourage education, climate science education even. Also, eat a little less meat, particularly beef. You don't have to go vegan. You don't have to be vegetarian. Just eat a little less of the meaty things. You know, I eat a lot of ground turkey, ground chicken. I like Boca burgers. I'm not a vegan. I don't pretend to be a vegetarian. But I try to do what I can. Every once in a while, I'll eat a good steak. But that's every once in a while. It's not all the time. Protect our forests. Our forests are exceedingly important. They help remove that, so we need to protect our forests. And even though we're probably past the point of planting more trees, we do need to shift where if we're going to mow down trees, we need to reforest somewhere else. Put back some of those plants that we've taken down. That's important. Reduce, recycle, reuse. Do you really need to buy a 12-pack of water bottles? I like filtered water. So I have a Brita. I have a Brita. Fill it up with my tap right there. Take my bottle to go. You got to go to Starbucks. Reusable cup, man. Real easy. Lowers your impact. We also need to adapt. We have got to understand this is not getting better and it's not going away. So we have to adapt to these new changes, and that can be in the form of lifestyle changes ourselves, small little changes in our lifestyle. But, if you do just a couple things, man, if you use those plastic bags and your grocery store takes them back, bring them back and shove them in the... We have a box over at my grocery store. We just take those plastic bags back and shove them in there. And then they can repurpose them if you need to. Not everybody can afford reusable bags, and I get that. But if you use them, just take them back and shove them in their little box. Most grocery stores have that. So it's something that you can do. So these are all things that we can do as a society, collectively. We don't have to give up. Oh, I can't give up meat. Nobody's asking you to. Nobody's asking you to give up meat. Maybe just eat a little bit less of the beef. Amp up that fish, chicken, whatever, man. But eat a little bit less of that. So let me catch up on the chat. Because I like catching up on the chat. Make certain I talk to everybody. Let's see. I have the same, those emergency blankets. I use them to insulate my back windows. 95% heat reflective. Works really well. That's fantastic. And I have blackout drapes. I do have actual blackout drapes that are on my back windows. So not only do I have those reflective type of film that I put on my windows, but I also have blackout drapes. And so that helps as well. So I don't, and here's the thing, we had a cold winter, but I didn't have to use my heat at all. I did use space heaters, but I only used them when I was home and when I wanted to warm up. And then I shut them off when I'm not really using that, I was onesies all winter, man, and it was okay. That's my choice. So let's see. Edison stole Tesla's and others' ideas and put his name on it. Yeah, that's true. Man, we're talking about Santas. Yep. There are massive wind farms here in California near Palm Springs. They're pretty cool. Okay. Could Thanos have snapped himself out of existence? Would that have caused like some kind of weird paradox? What would have gone with the stones? Would they have just like stayed in, how does that work? Goats use much less grassland than cows. Yeah, I love my water filter. I love mine too. Don't forget to go out and rake our forests. Oh my goodness. That kind of defeats the reason for him killing half everything. Well, we probably will need massive algae farms to convert CO2 into biomass. Could efficiently fuel our vehicles and stabilize our climate. I saw something a while ago, how instead of using like street lamps, one country was using algae lamps that have phosphorescence, that glow in the dark essentially. And so these algae, they can like eat up some of that CO2. So wouldn't that be cool? Instead of having street lamps, have algae lamps. Why not? Just they serve as natural CO2 things. Man, that'd be pretty cool. Can we do algae lamps? That would be pretty nifty. You can get lots of reusable grocery bags at street fairs and pride events. Yes, you can. You can. Brita filters don't do very well in the heat. Do you have them outside, though? Yeah, 3 billion people would do a lot less damage. They've banned single-use plastic bags in Australia. People adapt it very well. Hey, they can probably buy local when you can. True. In California cities and others, the now charge for bags, bring your own. They do that at Aldi, too. I like Aldi. Aldi's cool with that. I'm installing a biomass generator in my backyard to produce fertilizer and methane for fuel. That sounds cool. Let me know how that goes and if you got any kind of setup for that. Yeah, I might be keen, on finding that out. Thermal double cell blinds work well. That's cool. Okay. I'm suggesting people get the smaller jugs and keep them in the fridge. Yeah, I have like the huge, I have a huge thing that holds about, I think it's probably a gallon of water. I don't put it in the fridge. I do have an ice maker, but I live in an area where the water is really high quality. So I don't necessarily need the bottled water thing. And I just like the extra filtration that a Brita is, because that's just me. So I'm lucky that I live in a good high quality area for water. But bioluminescence isn't really strong enough to replace streetlights. Probably not if it was just a singular thing, but not like for driving perhaps, but maybe outside businesses, maybe somewhere like that. Lots of wind farms in the Midwest. Yes, when you're stuck in traffic, most cars have one person per vehicle. Simply car sharing would make a difference. Yes, it would. And I know some states have tried to do like the HOV lanes or the carpool lanes. So you can use that if you have multiple people in your car. Carpooling is a very, very good and useful way to kind of knock that out. It's just some people don't like each other. And so they're like, I don't want to share a car with a bunch of people. That's why I think public transport might be okay, because it's already just kind of well understood you're going to have to share a vehicle with a bunch of other people in it. But it seems less weird. Like socially, I think some people just have some issues carpooling in general with people that they work with all day, and they don't want to see them on the way home and stuff. So it just, but it does reduce the cost of gas. I don't know. It's just one of those things. Stinky feet. People are the number one issue with carpooling. Isn't that the way? Many countries, including the UK, have buildings to keep heat in. So with temperatures we've had the last few years, yes. In the UK particularly, because most of the time you guys don't have particularly hot weather. And so your buildings are built to keep heat in, particularly for the cold winters. And so that's a big problem for you guys, the hotter the planet gets. Yeah, there should be more public transportation. Gosh, man, if there was like like in London, you can take like the train all over freaking UK, man, all over the UK. We just don't have a good system like that in the US. If I had like a tube system, like, like their subways that came out to the rural areas, kind of like the trains do in the UK, oh my God, I'd be taking that every single freaking day. I would be just taking that every day. I would never take my car. I just wouldn't. I'd be like, what's the point? And then he'd drive. I'd just sit here, have somebody else drive, take a nap, have my phone go off. I'm just like, oh, we're here. Fantastic. So it's just kind of one of those things. If every house had solar panel, what could take care of at least half our needs for electricity, right? Yeah, it probably would. It's hot inside and we don't generally have air conditioning. Yeah, you don't. I see. Okay. So that's why the Brita pictures suffer. The middle section of my house is a slanted shed roof pointing south. Solar might provide electrical needs year round. Yeah, it could. Not everyone has to own a car if we can get a good public transport system. Yes, that's true. And then think about the reduction of car accidents. And we'd say it would be cheaper on people overall for gas. They wouldn't have to worry about car insurance. You know what I mean? It would be like you could just you just get like a lower rate on your car insurance. You wouldn't have to worry so much about that. Your trains are super expensive in the UK. I have to say, when I visit London, I usually get like their weekly pass for zones 1 and 2 on the Oyster card. That's about £35, or it was around £30. So that's about $45 to be able to travel in a week. As a tourist, that's a pretty good deal on an Oyster card. I still have my Oyster card from my very first visit. That's a pretty good deal, and that includes all the buses. And then I usually would stay with a friend out near Kew, and so I would just have to throw like £5-10 on there, and that would cover that a bit on the hitting the outskirts outside zones 1 and 2. So it wouldn't be too bad. I actually kind of, I don't mind it so much. Maybe renting cars could become cheaper for when a person really needs a car. Yeah, that's true. That'd be kind of good. So, we're getting close to the end here. So, what are the things that we can do? So, essentially, what is it that we got to do here? So, we're at a crucial time in climate change. It's going to take everyone at this point to get on board with making our world better. We cannot assume that this will never happen to us. Everything is going to get expensive. People will not be able to feed their families. Energy costs will rise. Water will become an issue. Work with your local schools, activists, communities, and universities to come together and push towards finding working solutions to help our communities adapt to these dramatic changes. Look to your local organizations and see what environmental programs are available, because there might be some. Vote for representatives, senators, and those in various offices, local and federal government, that understand climate science. Climate change is real. It's not going away. We need protections put into place and hold corporations responsible for carbon emissions, as well as shifting towards renewable energy resources. It's no longer a point of saying, this will never happen to me. It is happening to you. It's happening to me and everyone else. We need to care not only about ourselves, but about others and the rest of the living things on this rare and beautiful planet we have. We don't have a plan B. There's not another planet we can hop on now. And even then, we're going to mess that one up too. So, it's time for action. We got to take responsibility for what we do. We got to do it, guys. Oh, my nose itches. Ah, it's spring. Anybody else notice it's springtime? Itchy nose. Oh gosh. Going through Scotland and England this summer, public transport only. Pretty sure many in my country could work from home instead of driving to their office each day. Yeah, possibly. Yeah, that's a good idea. Decrease the amount of in-office time and work from home. That might help reduce building costs as well. Took my family of four to London, returned from West Wales, 250 miles each way, £400 cheaper to fly. Really? Huh. In cities, we'll see more rentable electric cars available through apps. Well, okay. Well, bye, Sky. So, we're wrapping this up here. We're wrapping this up. It's time to, because we're coming up on an hour. On an hour, guys. Here we go. So, what have we talked about? What is climate change? I've briefly discussed climate change. I didn't get into detail about all of the evidence. If you're curious about that, I have already done an episode on climate change. And you can check it out. Go under my playlists. You can scroll down and find, or you can Google the science of climate change, ScientistMel. You can look that up on YouTube. You can have a look at that. Because I get into the heavy detail of what the evidence is. And I didn't do that for this particular episode. I mostly talked about the recent science and what's going on, and what the current effects are from the latest data. I talked about the 2018 National Climate Assessment. I also discussed the carbon cycle and the latest report on that that's associated with the 2018 National Climate Assessment. Talked about what we can do. I talked about all of these different things. So, you can go back. Everything stays up forever. So I'm going to show you my sources really quickly because I try to be responsible. And I put my slides on my website. So the website that you can go to and look at the 2018 carbon2018.globalchange.gov, that's that carbon report I told you about. Check out the climate.nasa.gov. That website has so much information. www.noaa.gov/news, new federal climate assessment. A lot of what I discussed came from that breakdown. But you can also go and look at the report in brief, which is about 196 pages. But you can take a look. nca2018.globalchange.gov/downloads. Go over there. They have all their figures. They have the report in brief. They have lots of different resources you can check out. I did mention a little bit of stuff that theguardian.com, they have a pretty good article about what you can do as far as what we can do at this point as people, and also National Geographic, Global Warming Solutions. So all of these are very, very easy to find. So it's not difficult. You can have a look there. And so I'm going to talk quickly. Where can you find me? You can find me everywhere on the internet. ScientistMel.com, Patreon.com/ScientistMel. I'm running a new special for patrons, $10 and up. You will get a personalized video message, and it's up to you. I'll send it to you as an unlisted video, and then if you want to check it out, if you're like, make it public, I'll be like, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, whatever, and I'll make it public, and I'll share that message with the world about how awesome you are. So patrons, $10 and up, you will get a special message from me thanking you personally for all of the things that you've done to help me do what I do. So check that out. I'm on Periscope, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. So I'm going to take a moment to show my really awesome video for my patrons and acknowledge the awesomeness that they do. So here we go. Guys, so this has been an awesome episode of the science of climate change, current information. You guys have a fantastic day. You guys do you. I'm so happy that you're a part of this. You always make each day special for me. You know how? By just your being you. Always in the net with Mr. Rogers, one of my role models. Thank you guys so much for what you do. Thank you to my patrons. If you like what I do, like, share, and subscribe. And I will see you guys. I'm going to post a new ScientistMel shorts today. So check out later for a new video. And Thursday, we'll have This Week in BS with Dragnot, talking about anti-vaxxers and what they're doing instead of vaccinating. Ooh, check it out then. I will talk to you guys later. Thank you for being here. Squishy science hugs. Bye.